during the bad snowstorms and so forth. And when I was in one of my first jobs working, I think it was at the Arsenal, the people would say, "Oh, those Mexicans, they're just so lazy." I said, "You don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Because my grandpa and my dad, when they would have the real bad icy snowstorms, they would send the guys out, they would say the gang, in those little railroad cars to work on getting the ice off the railroad beds. And they even asked for overtime. And they said, "Oh yeah, they just didn't know how to push the pencil." I said, "Would you be out there in the freezing weather?" But I was that Grandpa Ramirez was brought up here to the United States, and then they Grandpa Ramirez settled in west end of Davenport, and they called that neighborhood or the barrio Cook's Point. Well, after a while, the landlord that owned that land, that was leasing it to the about 52 families of Mexican descent, he decided he wanted to sell it. So he evicted the people, and they only had a short time to leave that housing there. So the people went and they tried to find apartments or houses, put a down payment on the houses. And that ugly head of discrimination reared its head. And when people, our family members would try and rent an apartment or put a down payment on a house, they would say no. And one of my cases, my mom and dad's cases, they had the down payment. And when it came time to close the deal, they said, "No, we can't sell to you." They said, "Why?" They said, "Because you're Mexican." So, but later, you're going to find out, if you read the books on the Chicano movement, you'll find out that there's many things that we don't need to be ashamed of. But anyway, get back to the Cook's Point story. After Donicio's daughters and son-in-laws and daughters and so forth couldn't find housing, so they pooled their money together, and they bought a tract of land in the west end of Davenport. And if anybody goes to the courthouse, you look it up, it's called Ramirez subdivision. And that's because nobody wanted to rent or sell to the people that were being evicted. In fact, my mother went on TV asking the people to open up their hearts and their minds to rent to the people that were going to be homeless. They had the money and they were willing to make down payments to buy a house, but nobody wanted to sell to them. So, if anything, I want you to go home and take away the spirit of your ancestors. Don't give up. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Don't let them say that you can't, because there's always some way to do it. So Donicio Ramirez's daughters and son-in-laws, they pooled their money together and they bought that land. But also they had the challenge of moving the houses that they had down in Cook's Point down to the west end of Davenport, which now a lot of people call ramirezville. But it was something out of the movies, because these houses were on big rollers coming down the highway. They had to move the electric lines and so forth. But like I said, don't give up. There's always some way that you can do it. And is there any other questions that you might want to ask?
What kind of Indian do we have in us?
From the state of San Luis Potosí, they're called Huastecas. It's spelled Huesta. Huastecas.
He was talking about the restaurant.
But that's when people always say to go back where you came from. Well, actually, being indigenous people, native part of the Native American tribes, we were here long before other people came here, so don't let them tell you otherwise. And another thing is, no matter what you do, you know, there's always someone in the family that tried something, and maybe we weren't successful all the time, but at least we tried. And there are many situations where we did try, and sometimes you have to go through a lot of hardships in order to appreciate some of the stuff you have now. For instance, when we lived in Cook's Point, we used to swim in a quarry, which was not far from Cook's Point. It was a limestone bed where the water would come. You know, that's how the kids used to learn to get along with each other. And also, myself, we used to go onion topping. And in your history books, you'll read about Cesar Chavez. When he came to Davenport, well, Cesar Chavez met another farm worker, and that was us. And so he learned from us, and we learned from him. Is there any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.